Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at BellyUpSports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
So this is a name that we've been hearing for like a long time now about Jim Ratcliffe buying out the Glazers to have control of Manchester United. Now, there was also a battle with another person from Qatar trying to buy Manchester United as well. I think the issue was with him was he wasn't able to, I guess, explain his funds, which I didn't think that was, I don't know. I guess I'm easily corrupted because, like, if the person has the money to buy the club, I might just say, all right, cool. Don't care how you got your money. Just you got the money. Like, as long as the check doesn't bounce, you're good. So at least that's what I thought. Apparently I'm wrong. But Jim Ratcliffe was able to get his purchase in. Now, he didn't fully purchase the club. That is not what happened. He actually purchased 25% of Manchester United, which I will say in American dollars is 1.6 billion. Dollars, and he is able to have control of the club's operations. So that is the plan. I think I don't know if as we continue that he's going to be able to buy more stakes of it and maybe eventually buy out the Glazers. I can't tell you for that, but it seems that most people are happy with Ratcliffe, being that he is from Manchester. He actually grew up north of Manchester, I believe. I don't know the name of the town. I just know he is a Manchester native. Or I won't say native. He grew up in Manchester. I don't want to say native because I don't want to be wrong on it. But he did grow up in Manchester. And he has proposed a 3-year plan. A 3-year plan because a 10-year plan would not pan out because the fans are not patient enough for a 10-year plan. But 3 years, more realistic, I guess. Now, I've said this plenty of times. I don't necessarily think it's the Glazers' fault for why Manchester United is where they are, because I've said it plenty of times. It's clear that it's not that the spending, the spending is not an issue because Manchester United has gone and spent money for players. Whether the quality of the players is valid or not, they have been willing to go get the guys that the managers want. Whether they pan out or not, that's a whole other different discussion. But you cannot say that the reason why Manchester United is where they are is because of the Glazers. At least I don't think you can use that argument anymore. Y'all can come at me if you want, but that's where I feel. That's how from what I'm viewing, it is very difficult to blame it on the Glazers. I think there's a whole bunch of other issues. I think personally at this point, it is because people are so dead set on looking at the Manchester United of old. And trust me, I think it's impossible not to think about the Manchester United of old. Obviously, the glory years of Manchester United, which is the Sir Alex Ferguson era. But I think the issue is that everyone's like, oh, this is how we used to do it, so it clearly works. And it's like, the reality of it is everybody else has evolved. And I mean, the reason why I know that's something to mention is because even though, as much as I roasted the Cristiano Ronaldo interview with that guy, I forgot his name, so and so uncensored. What's the name of that guy? Ronaldo interview guy. Like, whoa, this is great podcasting. Just me Google searching. The guy that he interviews a lot with. Piers Morgan. There we go. When Ronaldo was on the Piers Morgan interview, one of the things he mentioned about Manchester United that everything looked the same from when he was with Manchester United. Like when he went into the facility, everything was the same. that's not a good thing. The facilities have to improve as the years progress. I know apparently Old Trafford also needs some improvement as well, is what I'm hearing. Mind you, Old Trafford's a very old stadium. So, I mean, probably warranted. Especially when you start seeing like clubs like, I believe Liverpool has a new stadium as well, the Anfield. Arsenal obviously got their new stadium, the Emirates. Shoot, even Tottenham's got a new stadium. I don't think that's warranted, but they got a new stadium. So, and I'm not saying that a new stadium is a solution or anything. I'm just saying that clearly you need to upgrade. I mean, look at Real Madrid. They renovated. They did their renovations to the Bernabeu. So you can always renovate your stadium, even your old stadiums. Like you can always renovate them. It's not necessarily a crazy take to say, but so part of his 3-year plan is also renovating, Old Trafford, which I believe he's actually hired on, Gary Neville, because from what is it Gary Neville? I think it's Gary Neville. Yeah, this is gonna be a great episode. Just me googling shit as I go. Okay, yeah, Gary Neville. So the thing is about Gary Neville that as obviously everybody knows him as the pundit, the one that's always spoke his opinion and all that shit. Blah blah blah. He's also really good with real estate. At least that's what I'm learning as I was researching about this. Is that he's been doing some pretty good things with real estate. He has a hotel that's over there in Manchester, and I believe he also owns like an academy, over there also in Manchester. So the man knows real estate. So he is joining forces, with Gary Neville to help renovate, Old Trafford, because the two options are either you build a new stadium, which is obviously what Arsenal's a good example, or Arsenal Tottenham have done, which got rid of the old and came in with a new stadium, or you can do what Real Madrid did and just renovate. And I think it's actually cheap. Obviously, in hindsight, it would be cheaper to renovate the stadium versus, at least I would assume it'd be cheaper to renovate it versus building a new stadium. But then again, building a new stadium, it draws a new allure. But I think the significance of Old Trafford, it would be, I think especially if your job is to kind of gain the love for Manchester United fans, especially because, like I said, there's a lot of people in Manchester United will always go back to the glory years of Manchester United, which is obviously the Sir Alex Ferguson era when they were one of the best teams, not only in the Premier League, but you can argue in Europe and maybe even the world. It was one of the biggest, brands in football at one point. But Old Trafford just holds a lot of significance, and I think what I would argue, if you're an American, at least if you want to think of it in that perspective, it's kind of similar to what happened with the Miami Hurricane Stadium with the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl was like one of the most iconic stadiums in college football, home of the University of Miami. A lot of national championships were played there. A lot of big moments of University of Miami's time came from there. And forgot obviously it's always going to be a money issue, right? Money is always going to be the thing. So the university, and then obviously also it didn't help that the University of Miami started not being the University of Miami, and so it ended up losing its argument to why keeping the Orange Bowl, which is why they tore the Orange Bowl down and they built the Marlins Stadium. I think that's what happened. And then now they play over where the Miami Dolphins, their stadium, which is Hard Rock Cafe. I think that's still what it's called. But that where they now play where the Miami Dolphins play, and it's not bad, but at the same time, it's just like, it's not a bad idea to play in a professional stadium, but it just sucks when you don't have a large crowd, and because it just looks depressing as hell. So, and I think, like, obviously, I think what hurt Miami, and I don't think this is the same situation as Manchester United by any means, but I think what hurt Miami was obviously the team started falling apart. Like, it wasn't the same team from the 80s. It wasn't the same team from the early 2000s where they were just dominant. They were still producing talent. They were still, still as one of the most respected brands in college football, and it's still looked at as that job that you want to fix you want to bring back the University of Miami. Which now, as I'm saying this, I know a few episodes ago, me and Kelsey and Edward were talking about it, and I was comparing the University of Miami to Barcelona, but actually, I think Manchester United might be the best MU, Miami. Well, obviously UM, but even you flip Manchester United, if you flip the acronym together, it's the University of Miami. So there we are. So I mean, I guess you could say very similar to what their situation is. It's a team that has a rich history of winning titles and developing some of the best players that the world of that sport has ever seen. Icons, when you think of Manchester United, you think of David Beckham, George Best, Cantona, Cristiano Ronaldo. When you think of University of Miami, you think of Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Alonzo Highsmith, Highsmith, Andre Johnson. I'm just saying that just because I'm a Texans fan. But, those names are there, and it's like iconic histories. The only thing that's different in these two scenarios is that Miami gets rid of their stadium. Manchester United, I think you're in a situation where you should just keep your stadium and continue building from it and renovate it. I think that's probably the cheaper option anyways, which, I mean, maybe we're talking about 0.6 billion, but still, I mean, and then if you're talking about a 3-year plan, if you're Ratcliffe and you're talking about a 3-year plan, renovating the stadium is probably going to help more towards that 3-year plan than it is for building a new stadium. But there's also some other things that they did. They hired Omar Beretta, who was with Manchester City, and they have brought him in to Manchester United to be their CEO. I mean, I think we've seen this everywhere, man, right? When, especially for a lot of teams, like you try to pick out people that work in successful businesses or in sports, you try to get people from successful teams, bring them in so they can try to fix the culture there as well. Because also the other thing with Manchester United, this is also a culture. You got to fix the culture there. I think, like I keep mentioning, they're just hung up on the past. You cannot be hung up on the past anymore. You got to move on. You got to evolve your game. And I think that is a very important thing, because obviously, I know people are going to say what they want about Manchester City, and I agree with you. If it wasn't for the money, will we still be talking about Manchester City? Probably not. But obviously, clearly they're doing something right. Because it's not just that they're buying players, which they are, but it's also, they're able to get a Phil Foden. I mean, Palmer, even though he's now with Chelsea, was with Manchester City. I still think Manchester City missed out on that one, and you still have Lewis. So clearly they're doing something right on both ends, but when it comes to buying players and also developing players through their academy system. So, Omar Beretta, which I can't tell you what a CEO does. I know they're like they run the company in some sort. But I don't know how this involves with football is what I'm saying. But for the football side, from what I know, they're also trying to work on possibly poaching Dan Ashworth from Newcastle United to be the director of football for Manchester United. There's been some controversy behind that, but I mean, if Ratcliffe can do it, if he's going to try to bring in the best possible team to achieve this 3-year plan, because you need to bring the best minds possible, the best football minds, to make this job done right. And I think if he feels Dan Ashworth is his guy, I can't tell you. I don't know what Newcastle has done besides getting money. But I don't know what Newcastle has done enough to say I want guys from that culture, is what I'm saying. There's also, the question behind Ten Hag. What do you do with Ten Hag? Is he staying with you or is he not? Now, aside from this past weekend where they lost to Fulham, they've had a pretty good stretch of games where they've been performing pretty well. Obviously, the injury of Højlund kind of hurt them a little bit. Not a little bit. I mean, they lost. But, but there's still pressure on Ten Hag. Despite of how the recent form has been, Um, the hell are people liking my stories? Okay, I need to not touch my phone. All right. The pressure is on Ten Hag. Like, is he the guy that fits to your 3-year plan? Is he or is he not? And if he is, then you keep running the course. But if he's not, you got to bring in your manager. And I think Ratcliffe is considering those options, and he's considering his top priority being Julian Nagelsmann, which I have nothing against this move by any means. As a matter of fact, I do think that Bayern Munich should have probably kept Nagelsmann. Um, I seriously do not know what was the logic behind sacking him. I don't know if he was. I believe he was sacked. Let me see, because I believe he was sacked, but I don't know. I know a lot of people, especially when me and Jose, when I dropped the reel or clip or whatever the hell you want to call it of of talking about Bayern Munich, when they were struggling, um, Julian Nagelsmann uh was it's like an interesting situation to me because obviously he's very young. He's like 36 years old. Uh, but I'm not entirely sure, what happened. Like, I don't remember if he got fired from Bayern Munich or what was the story there. But let me see. Yeah, he did get fired. He did get fired mid-season in his second season. Um, but he got fired and then took over and is now currently the German manager. But I believe his contract runs out after the Euro. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with Nagelsmann. I think what he has done over at RB Leipzig, and even his first year with Bayern Munich, like I think he's done a very good job. I don't know, honestly, I have no idea what happened that last season, because I mean he did get fired, he got sacked, and then Tuchel took over. But like I don't know what was the reasoning behind him getting sacked. I can't tell you for what was the cause, but I just know for a fact that he wasn't bad. I think he was a really good manager. I think getting fired like in his second year of his 5-year contract was a little bit ridiculous, but and halfway through his second year, um, so we'll see what happens there. But I think if he goes to Manchester United, I think it's an interesting challenge, but it also depends what exactly is he getting himself into. Are we looking at a situation similar to RB Leipzig, or are we talking about Bayern Munich? Because similar to Bayern Munich, it's a high pressure job because there's an expectation with Bayern Munich. It's to win titles. You're expected to win the Bundesliga. You're expected to be in the DFB Pokal. You're expected to do very well in Champions League. So there's a lot of pressure with the Bayern Munich job. And so, and if you're not performing, you have to then, get the fuck out kind of thing. With Manchester United, I think at this point there's a lot of frustration. Ton of frustration. It's not that there's expectation, but there's frustration of just stop being the banter club that they are now. They don't want they want to win. They want to win and compete and be back to being the top dogs in Europe. They want to be the best team in Manchester again. And does Julian Nagelsmann fit that realm? Because personally, obviously, I think he's more than capable of doing the job. The only issue is, are you going to let him do the job? Because it doesn't seem like Bayern Munich did, at least from my perspective. It didn't seem like they let him do his job. So, and then once again, we don't know the story about what happened with Bayern Munich, because I know Bayern Munich was struggling last year. I know there was a struggle with Bayern Munich, but they were still doing pretty well. And so, like, that's the thing that's bizarre to me. That's like the weirdest thing to me. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but Julian Nagelsmann is considered the top priority for Manchester United, at least in Jim Ratcliffe's eyes, which I think could be a really good option. But I think that there has to be one. So here's the things that I think Ratcliffe needs to consider coming into the summer for Manchester United. There's got to be a clear cleaning of house. If you're gonna sack Ten Hag, sack Ten Hag. I don't think any Manchester United fan is going to go against that. I think everybody's all for that idea, to be honest. But sack Ten Hag if you need to do that. Including in the cleaning of house, man. You gotta trim the fat, man. Get rid of the players that don't fit to what Manchester United is looking for. At least what your vision of Manchester United is fitting for. Like, just trim the fat, let them go. I'm not saying get to bare bones, but if you have to do that pros and cons, like have your list of guys that you think fit to what you want in Manchester United, and the guys that don't, get them out. Like whatever it takes to get rid of them, and then start bringing in guys that you think fits to what you want, the identity of what you want from Manchester United. So that's going to be the other important thing. And then number 2 is just get rid of the people that try to think that this is the old way works. Because if they're still stuck in the past, clearly it's not working. It's clearly not fucking working. So get the fuck out and start bringing people that are ready to evolve, ready to elevate the level of Manchester United. And I think number 3 is just listen to the fans. I mean, Ratcliffe is a fan of Manchester United. He grew up, he owns a lot of other things, man. Like he owns, I believe he owns a Formula 1 team as well, or has ownership of a Formula 1 team. But this guy owns a lot of things. And so but for him, this is the dream. The dream is to own Manchester United. He is every Manchester United fan. He had the opportunity to have some ownership of this club and is getting control of the club operations. Sorry that I burped. You gotta, you're a fan. Listen to your fans. Not listen to them completely, but I mean, what is causing the frustration? Hear them out and see what you can do to fix it. I mean, you're already, obviously the other thing is the stadium. They're trying to fix that up. So listen to your fans, see what they want, because at the end of the day, that's also who matters in this discussion. So lots of things that needs to be done for Manchester United. It's going to be very interesting to see what Ratcliffe does and what throughout the years in this 3-year plan happens, because I'm very much intrigued if there's going to be a buyout. If as he progresses, he increases his stake in the club to the point where the Glazers are officially bought out. Now, as someone who doesn't think that it's on the ownership where Manchester United is where they are, I think there's a lot of factors as to why this club has not been the same club from what I recall. What am I trying to say? Once again, man, I am just moving everything around. What I'm trying to say is that even though I don't personally think the Glazers are at all at fault of this, I think it's just an easy thing to blame. It's just blaming the American fans, the American owners. And I know, if you're Chelsea, you're definitely very familiar with this thing right now. But to me, it's lazy. I don't think it's the ownership, because you can't say it's the ownership's fault, because they're willing to pay to get what they need, what they think is the best. Because before everyone feels the way they feel about Ten Hag right now, Ten Hag was a very attractive option for manager. Say what you want, but he was an appealing option. Say what you want of Bruno Fernandes, or Fernandes, however you want to say it. But he was an appealing option. Say what you want about getting Casemiro. Casemiro, everyone was like, great guy, winner mentality. Same thing with Varane. Same thing. Even with Anthony, a lot of people wanted Anthony. So don't, you guys wanted Jadon Sancho. You wanted to bring him back to England. Like, don't say that none of you guys wanted those moves. Because I know for a fact there was a lot of fans that wanted those moves to happen. Now, did they pan out? That's a whole other discussion. That, to me, is a managerial problem. To me, that says more about Ten Hag than it does anything else. Because it was clear that they wanted these players. They were willing to pay for these players. And the fact that these guys kind of just stuck and nothing happened from Jadon Sancho was supposed to be, the best thing since sliced bread in Manchester United. And nothing came from it. So I do think that Ten Hag definitely needs to leave. Now, going back to the Glazer blaming, like I said, I don't think it's the Glazers' fault. But for the sanctity of the Glazers, maybe get bought out. Let it be Ratcliffe's problem. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm intrigued by the story. I can't wait to hear more about this story. But I can't wait to see more.